Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. A light sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. And try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Welcome to The Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I am your hostess for the evening, and with me is Brian. Hey, Brian.
Howdy.
So, Heno couldn't join us this week. We will miss him, but that's okay. We all know how life sometimes goes. But rumor has it he is recording another podcast that sounds really fascinating called Orville Lights. So, little plug out there for that one. Yeah. If you like the movie, or like the TV show Orville, make sure you look for that podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being said, if I sound a little different, because I'm assuming I probably do, I got myself a setup. Yay! So, I've got a soundboard and I've got a mic now. So, folks, hopefully this enhances your listening pleasure by not having some background sounds. And supposedly, possibly, the dogs will not be on the podcast, but we will find out this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that being said, I don't know, Brian, you want to start us out? How was your week?
Sorry. Jeez, I'm just making all the noise before I even talk here. Not too bad overall, I guess. One of the medicines that the neurologist put me on to try to prevent my migraines, I had to stop taking it. I took it for almost a week, and I was so nauseous every day.
Oh.
And it gave me, we'll say, tummy problems off and on. And and the worst one was I was feeling absent-minded. like, I was just sitting there and I'm just like drifting off into, you know, like daydreaming basically. And, couldn't figure out why. I thought it was because my sleep was really bad for a few days. And it wasn't that, because after I got some good sleep, I was still feeling that way. And once I quit the medicine, that went away. And I was like, that's it. That's enough for me. Like, I can't stand feeling like my brain's in a fog, or that I don't have control kind of my mental faculties, you know? It seriously angers me when, when I don't. So, you know, that medicine's right out. So, I go back to him in like a week or so. So we'll see what what he does from there. You know, so I'd have blood work done again. So for the third time within a week, I had to have blood pulled. Oh, I got a nice, you can see it there. Well, you can't see it as much now. I had a pretty nice bruise inside my elbow, because each time they pulled from that spot. So, nice. Because they were like, ooh, there's a vein. So, but, you know, I told this story a little in salty language, and I'll tell it a little here. I had to go to a urologist, and I had no idea what to expect, really, because I've never been to one. So I looked up online kind of like what to expect, you know, at the visit and whatnot. And, you know, like I was telling Tony, I was like, you know, I'll be 40 this year. Once you hit 40, guys, they start kind of like, hey, it's time to get the old finger in the butt, you know? So I didn't know what was going to be happening here. But I went in, and it was funny because when I went into the office, like on the desk was like, you know, a bottle of lube and, and various other stuff. And I'm like, oh boy, you know. But no, didn't have to do that. But this guy was maybe my favorite doctor ever.
That's awesome.
Because he cussed like a sailor. And just from the very first minute, he was making jokes. And, you know, it was great. Like, it took, like, you know me, I'm nervous anyway, and then something I haven't gone through before, I'm extra nervous, you know, so.
Yeah.
But as soon as he came in and started talking to me, boom, just completely disarmed it, which was awesome, you know, because I was pretty nervous going in there, which I fully recognize was silly. You know what I mean? Because it's...
Sure, yeah.
You know, it's like, what's the worst that's going to happen while I'm in the office? You know, really, like, even if he did a digital rectal exam, as they call it, even if he did one of those, you know, a prostate check, that's, you know, that's something that's for my health, essentially. It's not detrimental to me, essentially, you know, so whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was, it just blew my mind how, just how casual this guy was. I loved it. I wish all my doctors were this casual. So, yeah, it was, like I said, took something that I was super anxious about and turned it into actually a really positive experience. So, yeah, that was a good time. I mentioned on here about how I fought with GameStop's website to try to get a couple Funko Pops.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that they never, like, they sent me a thing on Twitter asking for my info so they could try to deal with it. Never heard back from them. I sent them a message, never heard anything. So I was just like, whatever, I'm done. I fought too much with this garbage, you know?
Right, it's time to move past it.
Right. So as of yesterday, basically, for the San Diego Comic-Con Pops, I realized that I couldn't get the GameStop ones. The site called Funimation had one, that their site just wet the bed, so I couldn't get the pop from there. The one I ordered from Target, they said was delivered, and I had no, it didn't show up anywhere. Like, said it was on our porch. I never saw it. And then last night I realized that the first place I ordered from was Hot Topic, and I went through super easy. I remember getting to the confirmation page at the end, you know, it says, you know, success, basically. Here's your confirmation. And I didn't save it because usually you get an email. Well, last night I was looking at my PayPal account and I was like, it still shows authorized. And that's been like 2 weeks ago. Like, by now it should have been processed. Like, the order should be moving along. And I'm like, so I go back through my email. I don't have a confirmation email from them. I go on, log into their website and look at my account. No record of an order. And I'm like, okay, so apparently I didn't order this, but my PayPal account shows that I authorized it. So how did I authorize it? But it didn't, you know, so, and I'm like, great, you know, so I'm like, so overall, out of all the pops I wanted from the San Diego Con stuff, I currently had one in my possession.
Oh, man.
There was like 6 I wanted. I have 1, you know? And most of it's not because they were sold out. Like, there's a couple, Captain Caveman, Pepe Le Pew, I didn't get because they sold out before I could get them, you know?
Yeah.
That's part of collecting. Fine, you know? It stinks, but whatever. So anyway, my brother and I went to GameStop last week, and we were talking with the guy there, and I was like, is there any chance you could call around and see if any GameStop can send a red hood here for me? And he was like, yeah, no problem. So he pulls up in their computer, right? Now, GameStop and, what's the name of it? ThinkGeek are owned by the same company, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
ThinkGeek, there was a ThinkGeek store that had 29 of them in. Most stores have 0 at this point. They had 29, but they're not allowed, ThinkGeek stores are not allowed to send things to GameStop stores.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, yeah, and of course it wasn't a closed store, you know, so I'm like,
Of course.
Well, he called around like 5 more stores and found one that had like 5 in stock, cause he was looking for ones that have 5 or 6, or, you know, that way they wouldn't, you know, 1 or 2 wouldn't be a huge deal, you know?
Right.
And one he called had 5, and the manager there was like, yeah, no problem, we'll send it tomorrow. And I went today and picked it up, so I now have 2 of the pops.
Yay!
And then I got the mail today, and there was the one from Target, so I'm up to 3 now.
Looking up. Things are looking up.
Yeah. And the only thing that really sucks is the Ron Swanson one, the Hot Topic one, is the one I wanted most. And that stinks because I was on right away. I had no problem with their site. Like, I zipped right through. You know, and my brother mentioned to me, you know, maybe give them a few more days and see if maybe they're just slow because they had so many orders or something, you know. But what stinks about it now is that they're sold out on the website and the store here doesn't have any, you know. So, you know, what can you do? I'll figure it out. It's not really, I know it's in the big scheme of things, it's not a big deal.
Problems, but still, I get you.
But it was super frustrating for me for a while there, and, you know, the frustration just seemed to keep mounting and mounting. You know, so it's good that now it's kind of resolving a little bit, and, you know, whatever. The one from Funimation I'll probably never get, because they took it down at some point and were like, yeah, we're never putting this up, basically. So, that's kind of weird.
Nice.
Yeah, but anyway, but even with that stuff happening, to bring it back around to relevance for this show, it was funny because I was mad at the moment, you know? But that quickly went away, and to where it got to a point that I was almost laughing at it, because I was like, this clearly is not meant to be, you know? Like, maybe I should get a message. Like today, on GameStop's website, they had the Red Hood pop back up on there, and that was before I picked mine up, like before I knew they had it. And I was like, should I order one? And I'm like, no, I'm not using their dang website because it has caused me nothing but, you know, but stress. So,
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's great the fact that you did everything the right way. Mm-hmm. You felt the feelings, you processed the feelings, you moved past them.
Right.
You know, you didn't hang on to them, you didn't try to bury them. You know, it's traditional life. You know, life throws you curveballs. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get angry. You're going to, you know, get upset over things that are, in the scheme of things, not a big deal.
Right.
That's what we are. We're human.
Right.
We do that.
Yeah, because it's not like not getting these is going to keep me from waking up tomorrow or something,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But how often do we, as adults even, things aren't fair.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that before, and we'll go on, and you get really, really upset by it. It's like, no, this is not fair. This is not how it's supposed to work, know? And it's really easy to get stuck in that.
Yeah.
And so many people, especially, right now we're seeing that a lot with millennials is the terminology, I guess, they're using. That they've grew up in such an atmosphere of fairness that they're really struggling with kind of the stuff that you just went through.
Yeah.
Typical, normal situations that are incredibly frustrating, that are not fair. It is not right, that someone else should get the product and you were in there first.
Yeah.
But that's life. Life has never been fair, nor has it ever been guaranteed to be fair. Right. So where we get this notion, it's just a human thing.
It really is. That's why I said it's always been something that amazes me. How you would think as we grow up, at some point it would sink in. Life isn't fair. But even though we say it all the time to people, and I don't just mean you and me, I mean just everyone in general, we all will say, well, life's not fair, whether it's to a kid, another person, whatever. But then, like you were saying, like something like this will happen, and the first thing people will say is, well, it's not fair, and
first thing we all go to.
Yep.
We know better.
Yeah.
But first thing we do.
Yeah.
Not fair.
Well, like I was saying, I can't remember if it was on this or on Salty Language, to where I was like, it's like, I was a good boy and I should get what I did what I was supposed to do.
That cookie.
Yeah. I did what I was supposed to do and I didn't get the prize. But, whatever. I'm glad I'm getting the ones I want. I figured I would, honestly, because these things are, like, from the cons and stuff, they're limited, but they're not, like, the ones that are super limited are con-only ones. They're limited to, like, 500 or 100 or something along those lines that I'll never get, because I just won't spend that kind of money. And it's a nightmare to get them at the cons.
Sure.
So I that's not going to happen. But anyway, unless I, like, win them through a contest or something. But then, the only other thing this week, that I can think of was I had, therapy last week, actually, but it was on, I don't know, Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember. And, I did a lot of talking with her about, taking the first steps, towards things that I fear. And, we really went over doing fear hierarchy lists, which if anybody doesn't know what that is, you should look it up. If fear dictates things in your life, a fear hierarchy, basically it breaks down the bigger thing into smaller things. Like I have a huge fear of driving. So you write down all the reasons that I have a fear of driving, and then you put them in order of priority of like the ones at the bottom or whatever, or however you do it. But, you do it from a, smallest to biggest. Like, maybe my ultimate goal on there would be driving on the highway, but my very first one would be sitting in the driver's seat. That's right. How much it can span, and you break things down. And she even told me, she's like, if you can't get into the car, she's like, break it down even farther if you have to. Take that one and then break it down, So, and she recommended a couple books for me to read. That's, I think, where I'm going to really focus my therapy going forward, because I'm really trying to undo my conditioning. I've been conditioned to fear over the years, and I've been in some positions where I didn't have much of a choice but to be constantly, when I had we had the comic shop, it was, I was constantly in a state of awareness because I was always juggling and trying to figure out money, and so I was constantly on edge there. And then my dad, that kept me on edge, so I went through some years there where I didn't have a choice, and then I think that really just snowballed. But even before that, I had been conditioned to fear, and it's going to be really hard for me to break that. Really hard. So,
but you can do it.
Yeah, but that's where I am right now. Is I'm looking at it, going, okay, this is an issue. This is, I mean, you know it well enough. It very heavily influences not even influences. It runs my life. It dictates my life.
Yeah, it dictates you.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, I walked out, feeling like I had just taken a 600-pound weight off of me, which is, when I feel that way walking out of therapy, to me, I go, that's exactly what I should feel when I walk out of here. First time that I don't feel that way, that's when I feel I'm done with therapy, or maybe 2 times, just to make sure. But, I walked out of there feeling way different. And, again, much like when I walked out of the neurologist's office, it was like, okay, I've got a bit of a game plan. Game plans like that, walking out with a plan, that keeps me looking forward, and moving that direction rather than just going, I don't know what to do,
Yeah.
So, anyway, there's my long-winded week.
That's awesome, though. It's really cool, what you're working on. I'm excited to see where this goes for you. You've done so well with other things that you've tackled. Yeah. I can only imagine that you're going to do well with this too.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not, it's one of those where I'm optimistic, but at the same time, I know this is going to be really hard for me, So.
Well, my week's been pretty good. Actually, it's been pretty awesome. I've had a couple big things that are happening in my life. First, I'm going to announce I'm actually going to own this and put it out there for the world. My husband and I have been married for just going on 2 years. In September, it'll be 2 years. And we've been trying to have a child for the last 2 years. And I am not pregnant, so I'll start with that. But we have decided that we're going to a specialist, and we're going down, probably not all that far down that road, because there's a lot of options out there, but we are doing some exploratory testing and stuff like that with some specialists, and just kind of seeing what's up and kind of going down that route. One of the reason I wanted to make sure I brought this up to the podcast and why I think it's important now is being a woman, and obviously this is not something that you can probably relate to, Brian, but...
Sure, I am a woman.
But you probably can in some ways. Is every month for the last almost 2 years now, I've been going through this cycle of maybe I could be, no I'm not. Maybe I could be, no I'm not. So at least once a month, I'm going through this, maybe, no, maybe, no. And it just completely messes with your anxiety levels, and it's, and that constant going back and forth and not knowing and not sure. And then, if your cycle does get messed up at all and you do happen to be a little bit late, then it really can get you going, because you're like, I'm late, but then I'm not. And yeah. So it gets really, a lot of emotions are very involved in it. And in fact, so much emotion to the point where I really struggled with even owning the fact that I want to have a child. And it was really difficult for me to even make that statement. So that's why I kind of started off the way I did with this conversation. And so I'm finally owning it, and I'm saying, no, I want to have a child, and I'm going to take steps to have a child and see what happens. Yeah. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's fine. But I want to just kind of put that in the universe, and I'm owning that statement.
Right.
So that's the first step, and the first thing I'm working on. And then the second thing is, I've been talking about it with you a little bit off the air, but I am owning my alter ego. I have an alt persona called Ditz with the Tits.
Now, hold on really quick. I want to clarify that this is not like a personality disorder kind of thing.
No. This is an alt online alt.
Yeah.
In particular, Twitter alt. So I kind of kept them separate for quite a long time, but I think now is a very good time for me to kind of merge them together, shall we say. And so I am actually doing a new podcast. So I love this podcast, and so I will still be on this podcast, of course, because it's my therapy. I love this place.
Right.
And but I'm going to be doing a new podcast called Shake the Sheets with Nate McGonigal, who is an awesome person. We met on Twitter, made friends on Twitter, and so it's more of an adult-themed podcast, kind of along the lines of Salty Language in that aspect. But it's going to be a news and entertainment podcast. So if you'd like to follow us and all that good jazz, we'd love to have you. More to come on that, and I'll add that later. But it's been really interesting. I've been spending a lot of time in the DITS persona with my DITS account on Twitter, and just really getting in touch with my sexuality and just really enjoying being that person as well. And now I think it's time to kind of bring that a little bit back, rein in DITS a little bit, expand out Jen a little bit more, and kind of bring the two together. So that's kind of my project that I'm working on right now. Mm-hmm. So it's exciting. I'm very excited by it, and hopefully it does well. And you know how it always goes. There's always dreams of monetizing podcasts, but
yeah.
every new podcaster has that dream. It's the golden goose.
Yeah. It's fine to have that dream as long as you're not getting into podcasting solely for it. I know you're not. I'm just saying in general.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because it's so hard to actually make real money that way.
It's incredibly hard. Mm. So, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen in life.
Yeah, true.
Mm-hmm. So, more news on Shake the Sheets coming at a later date. But in case you guys want to follow me on Twitter, my more active Twitter handle than Jen's Crazy Life, which I do love both, but my other handle is Dits with D Tits. So DITZWITDTITS. So putting that out there for the world. Mm-hmm. So with that, actually, that's all I got for the week. So, Brian, you have the article for us.
Yeah, since we just did, what was it? Was it last week? We just did the group catch-up kind of thing or whatever it was. Or
yes, we did.
So this week I kind of, felt like we should have a topic again. Not that we couldn't take what you and I just talked about and probably expand it a few more minutes and call it a show, but anyway, the one I have here is from, it was posted in February. It's from Psychology Today, and it says it's how to stop taking things personally. And part of the reason I picked this one is I know you and I have both had our issues with this over the years, and mine is because of a low self-esteem. I don't want to, say
mine
what...
I'm sure is as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that's what mine is it's I doubt myself so much, so if there's something someone says, I immediately take it as personal. I've gotten a lot better about it, but it's still tough sometimes not to. And there's more article to this than, a little opening or to beginning and stuff, but it's got 8 tips, to help, stop taking things seriously. The first one is know your inherent self-worth, which goes right to what we, is just saying.
Very important, but very difficult.
Another thing I've been, trying to work on more and more is, is that, says if you know yourself and your worth as a person, you won't be so quick to take the judgments of others personally. Take time to get to know yourself apart from who others may say you are. List 5 things about yourself that you're grateful for and call them to mind whenever you find yourself getting sensitive. And I can go one further than that, which was the experiment that I did, was that earlier this year? Or last year, whichever it was, where basically, I posted on Instagram just a picture of me and was like, hey, everybody tell me something that you like about me, And there were a lot of things that I read that I was like, I hadn't considered that, or, oh yeah, I am good at that, or something that I bring to the table, and it's pretty scary to do it, but it was really worth it. It was something that I really liked. I'm really glad I did, because it really did help my self-esteem. Because, it's like, a lot of times we project what we think other people think of us. Like, if I go out with this shirt on, people are going to think I look fat. If I go out with this, whatever, so, and as we've talked plenty of times on here, most of the time people aren't even going to notice, unless it's something really drawing their attention.
Well, the thing I always like to tell people is, if I give you a compliment and you kind of brush it off, I always ask them to flip it around. It's like, do you respect me as a person? Well, yeah. Do you respect my opinion? Well, yeah, we're friends. So most of the time that would be the case. So why are you discounting my opinion about you?
Yeah.
It's like, if you take my opinion on a variety of other subjects, why is this one subject so difficult for you to accept and take my word for it?
Yeah.
It's like, you may not feel that way personally, but if you trust me, trust me what I'm saying to you is, this is how I feel, this is the truth.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to accept. It's just tough. And I'll be honest, I struggle with, especially in formats on the interwebs and stuff. What do you say when someone gives you a compliment?
Yeah.
It's tough because you can't really sit there and go, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
So I use emojis a lot to kind of help with that, but it's like, it gets a little overwhelming.
But that really is, we talked about that before, because I know me and Henno talked about it, I'm pretty sure you were on the show that time too, about how really when someone pays you a compliment, how, say thank you,
Yes.
Don't allow yourself to dismiss it. Don't try to bend it back on them. But just say thank you. Even if you then follow it up with, oh, well, you're also blank. That's fine. But at least accept the compliment, because they are putting themselves out there, and you just dismissing it's kind of rude. But anyway, that's, if you have issues accepting compliments, I totally get it. We talked about it before. It's, something I'm still working on. I've gotten a lot better about it, but I'm still working on it. I just don't like focusing on me. I'd rather focus on anybody else. The second one on here is know your emotional triggers. All of us have emotional triggers from the past. Certain actions people take may trigger us to become sensitive about particular things. For example, if your father was overly critical and you tried to be perfect to please him, someone pointing out that you made a mistake could trigger you to feel more sensitive than another person might under the same circumstances. When you do get upset about a situation, ask yourself, am I really upset about this situation, or is this one of my emotional triggers?
That's fair. It's, dissecting the situation and understanding, basically putting it in perspective. It's like, what am I really upset about? Am I upset because someone said something about this, or am I upset because it hit a wrong nerve? Yeah.
Yep, exactly. This is a really good point, though. I hadn't, this is one I think that it's easy to fall into without really realizing it. Because it's amazing how we recognize all of our own downfalls, but sometimes we are completely blind to these kind of things. Or last week where I talked about, or the week before, whatever it was, when I talked about behavioral, what do you call them? I forgot what they're called already now. The things that you do, when you're to alleviate stress in a situation, looking for the exits when you go into a place or whatever, those behaviors that you don't even realize to some extent sometimes that you're doing, until somebody really is like, hey, you do this, Oh yeah. So, the third one is practice authenticity. This is the practice of letting go of thinking that you need to be someone else and actually embracing who you are. You must truly accept who and what you really are in order to be authentically you. Practice authenticity by doing what's best for you, putting yourself first, and really understanding what's good for you.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that I just had a very big lesson in that over this past week. Because I actually introduced my mother to Dits with the Tits.
Right?
She's like, really? You need to do this? I'm like, yes, this is part of who I am, Mom. I said, I'm not saying that it's all about who I am. I'm not saying, it's like, and please don't misunderstand, like Brian mentioned earlier, it's like, this is not two different personalities residing inside me.
Yeah.
This is just two sides of me as a person.
Right. Much like a person will have the way they behave at work versus, with
Correct.
their friends or something. That's more of how this is.
Yes, and I'm kind of bringing them both together and blending them together. For the longest time, I've kept Dits with the Tits very separate from from my everyday persona in real life. Basically, Dits was my alternative account on the webs. Jen is my real life personality, and I'm meshing them.
Mm-hmm. Which is not
all it ever has been.
Yeah, I was going to say, which is really not uncommon, especially on like Twitter. There are a lot of people who have one account and then they have an anonymous account so that they can write, dirtier jokes or more risque stuff. Or some are just because they want to write poetry, but they don't want like ridicule or what, they don't want someone to link the two and make fun of them or something to that effect, whatever. So
yeah, I'm just linking the two. I think that's the great term.
Yeah.
I'm linking the two together, the two people.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is make mistakes. As the saying goes, to become our best selves, we first have to be our worst selves. Allow yourself to make mistakes and understand that they're just part of the map leading you to the person you always wished you could be. When you do make a misstep, don't forget to forgive yourself. That's really big. It's important to take responsibility for your actions, but don't punish yourself too much if someone disapproves of you. Accept that you aren't perfect, and remember that there's really no such thing as mistakes if you learn from them. That last line's really good. I like that.
Agreed. In quite put perspective on things, folks. Take yourself out of the equation. If you say something and someone gets offended, you apologize, they don't accept it. Picture vice versa. If they said something to you that you were really offended by and you couldn't accept their apology, what would you do? Mm-hmm. Would you move past it is basically the answer.
Yeah.
You do what you can to remedy and you move past it.
Right.
And if it helps, take yourself out of the equation. What would you say if a coworker brought the situation to you and you're a third party looking in on it?
Yeah.
What would you tell them? And just work at it that way, because sometimes it's easier to see things that way than if you're one of the parties.
Yeah. I know we talked about that on a previous episode about, when you make a mistake, it's like you can kind of look at things differently, and that instead of seeing it as a mistake, you can look at that as a learning point or a launching point. Mm-hmm. A catalyst for change, I think is how we referred to it.
Yes.
Because seriously, like Google has a whole division, was it called X or whatever it is, where that's essentially their whole idea there is shoot for the moon. Mm-hmm. Literally no idea is essentially off the table, but they basically, every day they go into work to fail. That's essentially what that whole group does. But in doing so, they've come up with some really cool stuff, from what I've read, and that's the point of it, is to, most things, there's a box on you as far as how far you can go with experiments or thinking, and their point is, let's just take those limits off. I can't imagine going into work to where they're basically like, hey, whatever you think you can do, go for it. Give it a shot. See, and I'm sure, obviously, there's going to be meetings and boundaries and all that, I'm sure there's still boundaries, like if someone's like, hey, I think I can make a nuclear warhead, they're going to be like, maybe let's not do that, but, that's still their whole mentality, though, is go in, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the guy who's the head of that, I can't remember, I think he gave a TED Talk about it, a while ago. But anyway, so there's that kind of mentality is really for the best. It's kind of, you hear that from, Einstein or from, Edison, like you hear those kind of comments about, like how they didn't fail. They just, it's just a learning thing. 'Cause every time you quote fail or make a mistake, you go, okay, well that didn't work, but all of this did. So you go, okay, well let's start with all of this, and now let's go, okay, one didn't work, let's try two. Those kind of things. And, that's a much healthier way of looking at things than beating yourself up because you quote failed.
What was it? It's like, I didn't fail, I just learned what didn't work.
Yeah, something like that. I couldn't remember the quote, that's why I didn't say
exactly.
it.
Exactly. It's something along those lines. It's like, I successfully found what didn't work.
Yep. Exactly. So, okay. Funny, the next one, I'm sorry, did you have something you were going to say? Okay. The next one is set boundaries, which is really funny. I was just talking about, setting proper boundaries in your relationships will help you take things less personally. You put these boundaries in place by saying no to work, love, or activities that you don't want to do or that harm you emotionally. Doing too much to please others can lead you to feel very overly sensitive when they do something that upsets you.
Ever take someone somewhere that they didn't want to go? And that they were going just to please you? It is miserable. I think nobody enjoys themselves because you know that they're not happy.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have someone tell me, you know what, that's just not my thing. And you might want to ask somebody else because I'm just not into it.
Yeah.
No problem. Because then we've set the boundaries. I understand what their interests are, what their interests aren't. And I'm like, all right, you're not the guy that I'm going out and getting sushi with. No problem. I'll find somebody else, you know?
Right.
So it's so much easier than pretending and putting on a front and trying to make something work that's making you uncomfortable. Obviously, push your boundaries to a certain extent and stretch yourself.
Yeah.
For sure. But also just be aware of where your hard lines are, and there's no need to compromise. You don't have to compromise. Right.
That's the thing is, it's like if you put a boundary up and that boundary is there because, it's, for lack of a better term, it's like if you are doing, like if doing too much overtime is going to harm you because you're not going to get the right sleep, you're not going to, you're going to feel terrible, you're not going to be able to recharge the way you need to or whatever. And if you go, okay, well, I'm not working overtime, at least for a week, or I'm not doing whatever. And the people, if people keep pushing into that, you have to decide. It's like, okay, well, now we're into a different realm here, and that's where those boundaries are really important. Is much like your rib cage protects your lungs and heart, sometimes that's exactly what you're doing, is protecting the very kind of core of who you are. And letting people push into that kind of stuff gives them an unnecessary power over you too, and that's no good. So.
Nope.
Set your boundaries. Be willing to be flexible, of course, but also be willing to be firm. Sometimes people will, if they think they can push you, they will push you. So, make sure sometimes you push back. And I don't mean that in a mean or rude way. Just stand firm. If you say no is your answer.
And you can always say no, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had plenty of people they keep pushing, like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I appreciate you wanting to be with me, but nope, not my thing.
Exactly. Yep. Sorry. The next one is let it go. Use a painful experience from your past to help make you who you are. Use it to give you strength, empathy, and character. We all have something that has hurt us. Don't let it define who you are. Instead, use it to get stronger and make yourself proud.
Nice.
That's a good one, too. Yeah, especially also going back to that one where, mistakes. Don't keep beating yourself up for a mistake.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there's probably mistakes in life that, yeah, you're going to beat yourself up forever. You know, if you ran someone over or something like that, you know, something on that level. But the day-to-day kind of stuff, you know, no matter what, whether, you know, it's like just, you know, forgive yourself, move on. If it was a mistake, also, you know, that's okay. But don't, you know, again, if you got hurt by something, try not to let it dictate who you are. It's one of the things I hate the most, and I understand it, but it's like you see somebody in a relationship, and they get hurt in that relationship, like it ends, you know, and then they're basically like, I'm never letting anyone in again, you know, and it's like, no, don't be that person, you know, like, be careful, but, you know, you still have to put yourself into a position to, you know, don't let that experience dictate what you're going to do going forward, you know? So, I love this one. Number 7 is, know that kindness isn't a path to acceptance. We tend to expect that if we're nice and kind to everyone, giving all of ourselves to them, we should be treated the same way back. But being kind to others doesn't always buy their acceptance and approval. We better serve others and ourselves, we better serve others and ourselves if we do things because we want to, not because we expect something in return. And I've always been one to believe that if you do something with the expectation of getting something in return, that I would argue that that's not as much of a good deed, you know, because you are manipulating a situation to try to get something back. And if you're doing good, just do good, you know. Let things reward you on their own, essentially. But when you're only doing good to get something back, it kind of... Well, and that's the thing. There's something that objectivists Ayn Rand speak about, which is called selfishness is a virtue. And originally when I first heard it, I'm like, it really took me off guard. But the more I've understood it, it makes a lot of sense, which is it's okay to be selfish in the fact that there's always a little something that you get out of doing things. But that's not to say that that's the main reason you're doing it. Yeah. You know, like if you donate to somebody or you donate to a cause, shall we say, yes, you're giving of yourself and you're giving, you know, money or whatever it is. You do get some gratification for helping. You know, so in that, you do get something in return, but that doesn't have to, that's not your main motivation, and that's fine. Right. So it's finding that balance. Yeah, well, to me, what it is if I'm going to do something, if the very first thought I have is, what do I get in return? To me, it's no longer a good deed as much as it's a transaction. You know? Correct. Because that's really what it becomes to me. Now, other people, you know, you can disagree with that. That's totally fine. That's how I see it. You know, like if I go, oh, this person could, you know, is down on their luck and I want to give them money, it's not so, oh, well, you know, in the event that they this or this, I'll get, it's, you know what I mean? It's not like that. Or, oh, I'll take so-and-so to work because, you know, maybe if I do, they'll get me free pizza at the place they work at. You know, like those kind of things. It's like, well, now you're kind of, you know, you're kind of initiating a transaction with somebody that they don't know they're part of. Right. You know, to some extent. Very true. Yeah. So just like I said, just if you're doing good, just do good. However you want to feel, you know, let the universe reward you, let karma reward you, whatever it is, your religious, you know, beliefs, any of it. Just do good because, you know, don't go bragging about how good you are. I actually was just talking about this with somebody yesterday. That it's like whenever someone tells me how good of a person they are over and over and over again, all it leads me to do is go, no, you aren't, because you're trying to convince one of us that you are, you know, and it's... yourself or me, somebody you're trying to convince. Just let your actions speak for you, and that's kind of the same thing. If you know, it's why I loved years ago, and I know I'm bragging about it now, but it's not really, it's how we used to do those baskets for the families that you know, needed help through, and even though it was just at the holidays and stuff, the fact that we tried to stay anonymous in doing so, that is what it is to me, you know, like the people who were like, well, I did this, you know, and it's like, generally we did those and we just kept it to ourselves. And that's what I'm getting at with the whole thing is, you know, just do good, but don't brag about doing good. You know, and again, don't expect anything in return. Unless that was negotiated up front.
Right.
Otherwise, you know, don't hold money that you've loaned to somebody over their head. Don't, you know, those kind of things, because nothing irritated me more than how my grandma used to do that to my parents. You know, she'd loan them money off and on, and then, you know, first time she asked them to do something, if they couldn't, and then, well, I've been awfully good to you, and I've done this, and and it's like, that's not why you do that stuff. You know? So anyway, the last one is be logical. When something upsets you or makes you feel uncomfortable, it's helpful to take a look at the situation from a more logical perspective. Did the situation call for the reaction you had, or are you losing it unnecessarily? Is the other person really doing something wrong, or are you taking the situation too personally? If someone is truly being hurtful, can you ask for what you need or work on letting it go? If you don't consciously acknowledge the unmet need triggering your emotional reactions, you'll feel imprisoned by your own emotions. On the other hand, if you honestly take a look at yourself and see the expectations you cling to, you can begin to view life more objectively. You'll free yourself up to choose your responses to people in the future, start taking more responsibility for yourself, and remain more emotionally neutral. Sometimes our emotions call for us to be as sophisticated and educated as our logical brains. It's of great importance, therefore, to explore where your feelings are coming from, how you can respond to them, and how you can allow the situation to challenge and inspire you at the same time. When you educate yourself about your reactions, you can turn them into reasonable responses in the future. And that part right there is something that I've seen that and stuff that I've done over time, in that, you know, if you're able to kind of catch a feeling, which is not an easy thing to do. It takes some work to be able to get to that point where you can kind of, you know, someone says something about you and you're kind of like, whoa, freeze frame. And then you can, you know, analyze what was there and then go, okay, time back in and react. You know, it takes a while to get to that, and it'll take practice. Eventually, you know, enough practice, it becomes kind of secondhand, but, it can be very difficult to do, but it's a really good thing to do, you know, and this can be used not just here, but it can be used on other stuff too, like on fears and different stuff, you know, you know, the one I've gone back to it plenty of times on here, but like my therapist, before we went to, Chicago, I knew I was going to the, you know, or maybe going to the Comic-Con, and I know there's a ton of people there. And I was like, that's gonna this and this. And she's like, okay, picture yourself there in all those people. That, you know, now what? And I was like, and, you know, we kind of walked it through to where basically, you know, you ask yourself those questions. Am I in danger? Mm-hmm. And if you say no, say, okay, well, you know what I mean? Like, you ask yourself kind of a set of questions to basically move your brain back into, like, to basically use your brain logically instead of emotionally at that point. That's essentially what you're doing, is trying to throw that switch yourself, you know? And it's amazing how well it works if you can catch the moment, you know? And that's the tough part sometimes, is you blow right through that stop sign, you know?
Easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Because it is, you know, she mentioned that with my driving. You know, like fear driving. And she's like, okay, you're in the car, you're out wherever. She's like, why are you anxious? And I'm like, well, blah, blah, car accident. And she's like, are you in danger right then? And it's like, well, no. And she's like, exactly. She's like, whenever you feel the danger, you know, or you feel anxious, keep going back to the, am I okay? If I'm okay, then this is not an appropriate reaction, you know, essentially, you know, so, you know, and that kind of thing. But again, you know, you've got to be able to catch that stop sign.
Yeah, and that takes, it takes effort and it takes practice. You're 100% right on that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, that's the whole, thing we got here.
The whole list? That's awesome. Great list.
Mm.
It really is.
Link will be in the show notes if anybody wants to read it for themselves.
Yeah, that was awesome. And with that, I guess we are probably getting close, aren't we?
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, a little behind the curtain there. With that, folks, you know how it goes. If you want to continue the conversation with us, you want to talk about this topic or another topic, or, quite frankly, if you want to hear something new, you want to come on board, come contact us. You know how it goes. You can reach me on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. Or you can also reach me at my other account, which is Dits with the Tits, I mentioned earlier. You can also reach us via our email, which is thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. You can reach us via our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can check out more information on my new show, Shake the Sheets, at shakethesheets.weebly.com. You can also follow Shake the Sheets on Twitter. So that's all my plugs. Henno, if you want to reach out to Henno and talk to him about his new show that should be his new podcast that should be coming soon, it's Ida Henno on Twitter. It's also Henno Heiter on Facebook. And how about you, Brian?
You can find me at, you can find the show also on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find me at Stunami on Twitter. You can find my other show, Salty Language, at salty_language, or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work, so be very careful of whose ears you're listening to it around. Excuse me, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. And, please go join our group. You can join the group and then just turn off the notifications if you want. No, but Hanno posted some stuff over there today, and one of these days I'll get better about it. I've got various things that I've saved to post in there, and I just haven't done it. But, we're also part of the Tangentbound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So go over there and have a look or listen to other podcasts that are part of that network. If you're using Apple Podcasts, we would greatly appreciate it if you would rate, review, and subscribe if you have not already. We don't have very many reviews, so we could really use them. That helps us move up in the lists on iTunes and whatnot. If you're using a different podcast app, like Spotify or Stitcher or Google Play or whatever it's called, or any of those things, please use the like or share options. Or if they have a review option, please leave a review for us on those. We would greatly appreciate it. Is that everything? I think that's all those links, right? Looks like it. So yeah, then as normally, if you need help, please reach out. There are tons of people out there willing to help you. You just gotta, take the first step sometimes. And on the flip side of that, let's try to reach out to people that we know could use help, or people that have gone through something recently, like a breakup or lose job loss or whatever like that. But also don't forget the friends who are always telling you that they're fine, because odds are they aren't. And you may have to hammer a lot to get through their wall. The wall of I'm fine is tough to dig through sometimes, but make sure you check on those people too. Check on whoever you can and make sure they're doing okay. Give them a call, cause you just never know, you just calling somebody to make their day. Maybe you reconnect with somebody you haven't connected to or with in a while, or, you never know. In some of those situations, you may save somebody's life.
Absolutely. And nothing's more powerful than just talking with someone and sharing a connection.
Yeah.
So with that, go out there and connect with people. Give it your best. Have a great week. Wiggle your toes. All that good jazz.